And what's going on, Los Angeles, LAFB fam? How we doing? It's the Madman here. So great to see and hear from all of you. It's been a minute, guys. And the reason for that has been both Will and I spent June kind of taking some time off, vacationing with family. He was in Italy for a friend's wedding, and I'm still on travel with a lovely family vacation with my young daughter, my wife, my parents in Europe. So if you see the background here, I'm actually in the hotel gym inside a hotel in Europe here to bring you this coverage because ironically enough, Will both kind of decided to take June off for these travels and said, hey, look, June's probably going to be a quiet month. We'll be able to kind of catch up, get the ball rolling for our fans as soon as we get back. And holy cow, what are we witnessing here with UCLA recruiting in this month of June? So much so, I've had my phone blow up with alums, with boosters, with sources, and just felt like I had to get a couple of parts out here for all of you. Will's going to do something individually as well in the next couple of days, and then the band is back together, back stateside next week. But just had to sort of reach out to the fans here. Folks were asking, what's going on with the thrill? What's going on with the Madman here in June with this crazy month of recruiting? So we wanted to provide you with as much coverage as we could given our travels. And holy cow, Mr. DeShaun Foster coming through in a significant way here as we're closing out this month of June. 14 new commitments to this class of 2026, bringing the total up to 22 total commits for this class, getting into a position now where UCLA ranked number 9 in recruiting nationally by some major outlets, number 10 by some other major outlets. This is going to be potentially the first time in 10 years since really that second half of the Mora era that UCLA has the opportunity to finish with a top 10 recruiting class. And my God, as DeShaun Foster really laid out the framework for what he was talking about, really his first moments on the job. It really felt like over the course of this 2025 season, he spent a lot of time on really operationalizing the plan for 2025, making sure he had the right coordinators in place, making sure that he had the right game plan, the right nutrition, the right weight room elements, really everything that was going on schematically. And as he promised us, he said, look, I want my coordinators to really take charge of the X's and O's and really run the tactics of the team. And let me focus on the recruiting. Let me focus on being the CEO. Let me focus on NIL and bringing in the money. And boy, oh boy, has he really done so from a recruiting standpoint. We have so many new recruits here, folks. I'm going to divide this up into 2 parts. So today, in this particular segment, we're going to focus on the 7 latest recruits. And then part 2 of this segment that will come to you very, very shortly will be the first 7 recruits as part of this 14. And so we want to sort of break it down one by one. And as we jump into it, really the latest and greatest recruit that just dropped about 18 hours ago stateside, Xavier Warren, 6'0", 165 pounds from Georgetown, Texas. My God, can this kid absolutely fly? Runs a 10.3 200 meter, sub 4.4 40 meters. This guy is an absolute world-class track star, and you gotta love what that's going to bring to this Tino Sunseri offense in particular. Last season in high school, 46 catches for 876 yards and 9 touchdowns. So you're talking about a guy that's nearly given you 20 yards a catch at the high school level. You're a true home run hitter in every sense of the word. He also had 7 carries for 53 yards and another 4 touchdowns. So what does that tell you? He touched the ball 7 times on the ground as part of reverses in the backfield. 4 of those 7 ultimately end up going to the house. So you're talking about absolute breakaway speed. And what we're so excited about is look at the other universities that were going after Xavier Warren. You're talking about Arkansas. You're talking about Oklahoma State. You're talking about SMU that just made the college football playoff. Michigan State and Nebraska, fellow Big Ten foes. So not only is DeShaun Foster exhibiting an ability to go outside of California, recruit UCLA nationally as a national brand, but beat out not just competitors that are really jockeying for that top 4, top 5, top 6 position in the Big Ten, but also some formidable opponents in other conferences that have already made it to a college football playoff. So very excited about Xavier Warren and what he'll potentially be able to bring into 2026 and beyond. Moving forward, right before the Xavier Warren situation broke in such a positive way, it was all about the Soliai cousins out of Hawaii. You had Madden Soliai, and then you had Malachi Soliai Tui. And these two package deal, both 3 stars, but both bring so much more than just stars, if you will, to the table. Madden is a safety prospect to the tune of 5'10", 180 pounds. You're talking about a guy who's the 8th ranked player in the state of Hawaii across all positions from Kahuku, Hawaii. And you're looking at an individual who was recruited by the likes of Utah, by the likes of Washington, Oregon State, and Boise State. And when you think about who on the West Coast the last 10 years has really played a physical, formidable style of ball, it's been that Kyle Whittingham and that Utah defense. And if Soliai is good enough for Kyle Whittingham, and we've said this about a number of prospects in years past, Will and I have, then he's certainly doing something right in a very significant way. Kyle Whittingham, arguably the most underrated coach in all of college football. And I loved what Greg Buggins said at 247 Sports, where he said this kid might be the toughest and hardest hitting safety in all of the West Coast, certainly one of them. And so really excited about what Madden brings to the table. And then his cousin Malachi, who's a linebacker, 6'1", 205. Madden was the 8th ranked player in the state of Hawaii. Malachi is the 9th ranked player in the state of Hawaii. So you knew they were going to be a package deal. They represented commits 20 and 21 of this class for DeShaun Foster. And Malachi, in addition to the names mentioned that were being recruited by Madden, was also being recruited by Michigan State. You know, a fellow Big Ten compatriot here at that linebacker position. You know the importance of front seven play in this particular conference. To see UCLA beat out Michigan State yet again for another recruit, particularly in that trench area as part of that front seven. So exciting. So now we got Xavier Warren, we got the Soliai twins, and now kind of segueing over an interesting recruit just from a couple of days ago, Giancarlo Serragino, who is a long snapper. Number 1 long snapper in the state of California, number 2 long snapper in the entire nation. And I think this is going to be sort of an underrated recruit. You can't really sort of measure Serragino statistically because of the nature of the position, but we all know the importance of special teams, particularly in the Big Ten. Possessions are fewer. There's a lot more clock management, just more inherently close games going into the fourth quarter. Those field goals, that field position, the punting game, all of this matters so significantly. Punters and the punting game in particular can kind of flip the field, can take a 3-point lead, allow you to sort of protect it all the way, perhaps even steal a possession, extend the possession. So the ability to get such an elite long snapper, I think, is going to pay dividends for years to come for UCLA. And look, if Serragino was good enough to be recruited and given an offer by Alabama, essentially the face of this sport over the last 15 years, and that he picked UCLA over the likes of being able to go to Alabama, speaks volumes in a very significant way. So we're very excited about Giancarlo Serragino as well. And then more skill position help coming on the way. This was some of the news that broke about 5 or 6 days ago. The first is Xavier Stinson, wide receiver from Vero Beach, Florida, 6'2", 185, 106th best player in Florida. Really a kid so raw with so much talent. He's 3-star, but again, this is one of those situations where these are diamonds in the rough. These are individuals that have just so much talent and so much upside. You know, and that 6'2", 185, you get him in that weight room, get him maybe up to 193, 195. You're talking about someone who's going to be long, athletic, incredible catch radius, and really provide the Iamaleave twins and the Iamaleave brothers of this future lineage that we have at quarterback some incredible optionality in the passing game. And so very excited about Xavier Stinson kind of coming into that Kirk Cignetti, Tino Sunseri sort of heritage offense here, where you really go 4 or 5 wide receiver deep. So it's really important to have a significant amount of depth at that outside wide receiver position. And look, he was offered by Arkansas, which is a very dynamic offensive system at times in the SEC. And then again, Michigan State, UCLA beating out both of those teams for Xavier Stinson's services. So very excited there. And then coupling with Stinson that was announced was Santana Carlos, another wide receiver from Florida, Hollywood, Florida this time. So coming from Hollywood, Florida to Hollywood, California, Santana Carlos, 5'11", 170, 130th best player in Florida. And he got sort of recruited by the likes of Indiana, by the likes of Nebraska. Again, teams that UCLA is going to be competing with in this Big Ten. And he was recruited by Indiana. He was recruited by Kirk Cignetti. He was recruited by Tino Sunseri in the past. So they saw something that they really liked in terms of being able to keep that system and that hopefully that machine going in Indiana. He fits right in as that true sort of gadget wide receiver. Again, another home run element here. You can clearly see there's a plan that DeShaun Foster and Tino Sunseri have. They really want to be able to stretch that field vertically, have a lot of depth at wide receiver, but also that ability to go deep, to really open up space in that, second part of the field. After you sort of get through that initial point of attack, things opening up for the tight end, things opening up for your slot receivers, things opening up for your really exceptional route runners and your sort of versatile receivers as well. So very excited about Santana Carlos along with Xavier Stinson, and the fact that DeShaun Foster was able to go into talent-rich Florida and be able to pull both of those commits is absolutely significant. And then the last of our 7 commits as part of part 1 is David Schwartzel, 6'4", 275 defensive line prospect from Seattle, Washington, number 2 ranked player in the state of Washington, which is very exciting. This kid was recruited not just by Washington and everything that Jetfish has got going, but recruited by the likes of Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, and Miami. And at 6'4", 275 at that particular age, an absolute prototypical interior lineman beast. And the fact that he was able to say no to a Jetfish, who's a recruiting machine, as we know, and what he's trying to build at Washington, and be the second best player in all of the state of Washington, to say no to Jetfish and ultimately say yes to DeShaun Foster, to me speaks absolutely volumes. And a guy like Schwartzel and a guy like Stinson and a guy like the Soliai twins all have sort of repeatedly said it was the culture. There's something special happening in Westwood, and just the personal touch associated with the recruiting was absolutely special and significant and palpable. And so you're seeing it here. I think we have to judge this year as being year 1 of the DeShaun Foster era, considering how late he got that job last year after everything that went down with Chip Kelly. He did what he could. Sure, he made a couple of mistakes. We can really sort of argue that, particularly from a coordinator position, but I think he's really starting to dial into his pitch. He's dialing into what his strengths are. And even though he's a shyer guy, he's a more reserved guy, he's been so confident as a recruiter, particularly from day 1 press conference to now, that you're starting to see the fruits of that labor. UCLA football, ladies and gentlemen, jump on this bandwagon now. They're coming, okay? And they're coming in a significant way. This is starting to feel like the Mora era. This is starting to feel like the way Donahue had it rolling in the 90s, and then Bob Toledo kind of off of that piggyback in the late 90s. And let's be honest, since Donahue, since the mid-'80s, the last 40 years, between Donahue, between Toledo, even between Rick Neuheisel, between Jim Mora, guys have been able to recruit. This is still UCLA, one of the best all-round universities in the entire world, number 1 public school in the world, incredible alumni, incredible history in athletics, incredible history in just about every field. The only 2 guys that really struggled recruiting at UCLA, one was Carl Durrell, and then one, of course, was Chip Kelly. And I think those were for sort of inherent reasons. I think UCLA was trying to find itself after Toledo retired as part of breaking away from that Donahue lineage, going to an alum with Durrell, even though maybe it wasn't quite the right fit at that particular time. And then we all know how Chip was so anti-recruiting in this sort of traditional sense. So if you've got a guy who really believes in this place, and we know that DeShaun does, we know this is a calling for DeShaun, this is the destination job for DeShaun, that if you sell the values of the university, the virtues of the university, and you get out there and you put the foot to pavement, guys are going to want to come to UCLA, particularly now in this NIL era. So lots more to unpack. This is just part 1 of the episode, but had to get something out there to our fans to really have a point of view here on just the momentum that's taking place. Now, granted, it's a long way to signing day. This is 22 recruits, so a little bit inflated ranking in the top 10 because of the volume. But things will sort of level off a little bit. You're probably going to lose a few of these guys just given the nature of NIL and the transfer portal and the 24/7 nature of this. But you're going to get other guys as well. And so the fact of the matter is, if you're staying out in front all the way in June in top 10, things have to really go wrong in a way that I don't really foresee for this not to at least maintain to be a top 15 to top 20 class when it's all said and done. So exciting here. And can you just imagine if DeShaun can put some things together on the field, get to bowl eligibility, get to a couple of big conference victories, this is just going to elevate moving forward. So much to be excited about. As promised, part 2 coming up very shortly here. And Will and me back together next week stateside. Apologies for the family vacation. Blame my wife. But excited to be back with all of you next week with the Thriller. We'll have Wayne on and get his perspective. And as always, folks, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in stateside, wherever you are in the world during this summer, be loud, be proud, Bruins. Fours up forever.